it seems like every section of A Course in Miracles, of the text of A Course in Miracles, has at least one singable line. And here's one from today's section that we're going to read. Child of God, you were created to create the good, the beautiful, and the holy. Do not forget this. Child of God, child of God, you were created to create the good, the beautiful, and the holy. Do not forget this, dear child of God. Do not forget this, dear child of God. Okay, today we're going to read chapter 1, The Meaning of Miracles, section 7, and it's called Distortions of Miracle Impulses. It's worth mentioning that originally the Course was not divided up into these sections. It did not have the section headings. It did not have, apparently it didn't even have punctuation a lot of times. So all of that was added later. So just something to note. So, there was editing, and this is a whole nother discussion that we can talk about at some point, and I will talk about at some point. And it's a big debate in the Course in Miracles world about that. So, but many people have used and found truly helpful this third edition of the Course, the Blue Book. Many people still use it, including myself, and there are other editions out there as well. I've already talked about this, but this one is tried and true. It has helped many people. And I want to mention one other thing, actually, before we start reading. In yesterday's reading, there was this whole thing about perfect love casts out fear, which is actually from the Gospel of John. That line, perfect love casts out fear. Now, Jesus in the Course directly quotes it. And I was saying that basically, the Course was saying essentially the same thing as what John is saying. But actually, the truth is that whenever Jesus quotes from the Gospels, and there are numerous quotes, and usually they're very short quotes, it kind of just like referencing the King James version of the Gospels. It's to reinterpret it. It's actually to reinterpret it according to the Course's presentation, to fit with what the Course is presenting, and the Course is presenting something different. You could say it's really getting to the same thing. It's not better. It's different. It's its own unique thing. So, to say perfect love casts out fear, for the Course, that's to what's called confusing levels, because perfect love does not cast out anything for the Course. Perfect love just is. God just is. So God does not cast out just like casting out Satan or casting out demons. God does not do that. Why? Because God just is. God is love, and love just is, and love does not do anything. Satan and the devil and all of that is egoic, something that came after the separation happened. So the Course sometimes will, correct for the sake of the presentation of the Course. Not to say that Christianity is wrong, because obviously Christianity has and still does help many people. A Course in Miracles is generally for people that are kind of on the outs with traditional Christianity or traditional religion. And as I've been saying, you don't have to believe in Jesus, the story of Jesus, to find the Course helpful. You can actually be an atheist, and that's something we will talk about more. You can be an agnostic, an atheist, or whatever you want to be. You could also, generally you're not going to be a fundamentalist Christian. Most fundamentalist Christians think the A Course in Miracles is satanic. Also, it's something else that we might talk about at some point. Anyway, Distortions of Miracle Impulses, Chapter 1, Section 7. Your distorted perceptions produce a dense cover over miracle impulses, making it hard for them to reach your own awareness. The confusion of miracle impulses with physical impulses is a major perceptual distortion. Physical impulses are misdirected miracle impulses. All real pleasure comes from doing God's will. This is because not doing it is a denial of self with a capital S. Denial of self results in illusions, while correction of the error brings release from it. Do not deceive yourself into believing that you can relate in peace to God or to your brothers with anything external. Child of God, you were created to create the good, the beautiful, and the holy. Do not forget this. The love of God, for a little while, must still be expressed through one body to another, because vision is still so dim. You can use your body best to help you enlarge your perception so you can achieve real vision, of which the physical eye is incapable. Learning to do this is the body's only true usefulness. Fantasy is a distorted form of vision. Fantasies of any kind are distortions because they always involve twisting perception into unreality. Actions that stem from distortions are literally the reactions of those who know not what they do. Fantasy is an attempt to control reality according to false needs. Twist reality in any way and you are perceiving destructively. Fantasies are a means of making false associations and attempting to obtain pleasure from them. But although you can perceive false associations, you can never make them real except to yourself. You believe in what you make. If you offer miracles, you will be equally strong in your belief in them. The strength of your conviction will then sustain the belief of the miracle receiver. Fantasies become totally unnecessary as the wholly satisfying nature of reality becomes apparent to both giver and receiver. Reality is, quote, lost, unquote, through usurpation, which produces tyranny. As long as a single, quote, slave, unquote, remains to walk the earth, your release is not complete. Complete restoration of the sonship is the only goal of the miracle-minded. This is a course in mind training. All learning involves attention and study at some level. Some of the later parts of the course rest too heavily on these earlier sections not to require their careful study. You will also need them for preparation. Without this, you may become much too fearful of what is to come to make constructive use of it. However, as you study these earlier sections, you will begin to see some of the implications that will be amplified later on. A solid foundation is necessary because of the confusion between fear and awe to which I have already referred and which is often made. I have said that awe is inappropriate in connection with the sons of God because you should not experience awe in the presence of your equals. However, it was also emphasized that awe is proper in the presence of your Creator. I have been very careful to clarify my role in the atonement without either over or understating it. I am also trying to do the same with yours. I have stressed that awe is not an appropriate reaction to me because of our inherent equality. Some of the later steps in this course, however, involve a more direct approach to God Himself. It would be unwise to start on these steps without careful preparation, or all will be confused with fear, and the experience will be more traumatic than beatific. Healing is of God in the end. The means are being carefully explained to you. Revelation may occasionally reveal the end to you, but to reach it, the means are needed. Okay, so let's talk about this a little bit. Apparently, A Course in Miracles was originally given to Helen and Bill, ostensibly to help them heal their own relationship with each other, which was oftentimes antagonistic. And apparently this section, if you look back at the original, it actually talked quite a bit about sexuality. And Helen famously said that there will be no sex in my course, something like that, which is really funny, actually. And there is no mention of sex in A Course in Miracles, although there was in the original. Now, whether you think that is a good thing or not, again, a whole nother question, can of worms. But what Jesus seems to be getting at here is that we seek pleasure, we avoid pain. We think that we will find pleasure in external things. We're always seeking the external to give us some kind of fulfillment, to fulfill the lack that we feel. Again, going back to what the last section was called the illusion of needs, that we think we need something. We feel that we lack something, and that's ever since the separation. That's been the case. That everyone is walking around feeling unfulfilled. How do we get our fulfillment? We seek it outside of ourselves. We seek it in some kind of pleasure. And what's one of the highest, or one of the greatest, for most, is sex, sexuality, seeking it in some other person. And the Course is, it's really like saying, know the difference between lust and love. Love is we know what love is. Again, we all know what love is. We all know what lust is. Not that you cannot have lust and in a loving relationship. And again, this is not even just about sex. We're not just talking about sex here. But we're getting at something deeper, which is that we cannot find what we're seeking outside of ourselves. It's all an inside job, and we have to go to the root of the problem. Jesus here talks about fantasies and how fantasies bring us into unreality, and there's nothing greater than reality. Ain't nothing like the real thing, as they say. As long as a single slave remains to walk the earth, your release is not complete. Complete restoration of the sonship is the only goal of the miracle-minded. Now, is that literally true? That's an open question. I've already talked about, but it's worth talking about again, about how literal to take A Course in Miracles. What is literal? What should be taken literally, and what is more metaphorical? And what is maybe not metaphor, maybe a little bit of both, if that's even possible, but maybe it's really Jesus trying to motivate you to say that again, like, complete forgiveness is the only way. And to arrive at complete forgiveness, it might be helpful to think that everyone has to be set free. Everyone has to be set free, meaning in your mind, forgiveness has to apply to everyone and everything. And maybe what Jesus said there is a way of saying that. It's not to say that, if you look at the world, an open question is the world different now than it's ever been? Is this moment in time different than any other moment in history? Now, on the surface, it is. On the level of form, it definitely is. On the deeper level, which of course calls it the content, it might be exactly the same as it's ever been. And I think that's what the Course is getting at, is that this moment is not any different than any other moment. There are no special moments. Every moment has everything. It's a hologram. Every moment is a hologram of the whole thing. So, will there ever be a time when everyone is free on the external level? That's why, as long as a single slave remains to walk the earth. Now, if you read that literally, you think that everyone on earth needs to be free. And the way I read this is, in your mind, in my mind, I have to set everyone free. That's what that means. The next part is also very, very important, and one that we really need to talk about. This is a course in mind training. All learning involves attention and study at some level. Some of the later parts of the course rest too heavily on these earlier sections not to require their careful study. This is Jesus telling us to take all of this very, read this very carefully. Think about this. Ponder what he's getting at. He's building things for you so that if you take it all together, it will help you to free yourself. If you miss parts, or if you resist parts, then you might not get to where it's meant to take you. Let's take an example that more and more people in our world are experiencing these days, which is the use of psychedelics. This is something I've written about. Now, on the psychedelic, in the world of psychedelia, many people have had what are called the bad trip. Fear. It's fearful, so Jesus here says, without the preparation that Jesus is giving you, you may become much too fearful of what is to come. And he also says that all is now among equals, including us and Jesus. It's best to think of each other as brothers and sisters, as equals. We're all equals. We're all in the same boat. We're all part of the same sonship. It might be more useful, though, at this moment to think of God in terms of awe, and that the experience of God is literally awesome. And it might be awful if you don't prepare yourself, which is why some people have those bad trips. I think with psychedelics, because they get too affected by the by what happens, as opposed to just sitting back and calmly observing, which is very, very difficult to do, and not give into the fear. If you can avoid giving into the fear, you can it's not so bad, and it might even get to the point where you can really appreciate it, and through the appreciation, the ego dissolves, and you go, you transcend that. So I have stressed that awe is not an appropriate reaction to me because of her inherent inequality. Some of the later steps in this course, however, involve a more direct approach to God himself. It would be unwise to start on these steps without careful preparation, or awe will be confused with fear, and the experience will be more traumatic than beatific. It's a great line. The experience, I think what Jesus is getting at, is the experience of your true self, the experience of your oneness with God ultimately will be beatific. But if you don't prepare yourself, it might not be that way. You might get closer to what it is, and you might really freak out. From my experience, just speaking personally with working with ayahuasca, I will say that early on, I had many of those traumatic experiences until I learned not to take all of that so seriously, and just to try to sit back and observe it, and realize, and the courses, we'll talk about this later, realize that as you get closer, the ego will throw everything at you, throw every possible reason why you are unworthy of God, of love, and try to keep you locked into that, into the feeling of being a personality, being a body. Who are you to know God? And I think we'll end with that, and that's the end of that chapter. And the next one will be chapter 2, the separation and the atonement. Thank you so much. If you found this helpful, please like, and if you feel inspired to subscribe, feel free to leave a comment. I would love your feedback, and any questions or anything you want to talk about or want me to talk about, and feel free to reach out anytime. Thank you, and see you soon. Bye.